Hello my friends, and welcome back to another video. Today is going to be my June wrap-up. I know I just posted my May wrap-up not too long ago, but like I said, I am behind on posting content, so you're gonna have two wrap-ups kind of back-to-back, unfortunately. Hopefully you all don't mind too much. But yeah, I have 18 books to talk about here. I have some duds and actually some really surprising reads, which I'm very excited about. So let's get into what I read for the month of June. I'm gonna start with my Kindle books, that way I remember to include them and I don't forget, so I'm gonna do them both just right here at the beginning. So first up is Mayfly by CJ Lead. I had a NetGalley arc of this one and I was very interested in reading this one. I know a lot of people have said really great things about it and I wasn't quite sure if I was going to like it because it is compared to American Psycho, which I've never read, but I'm not a fan of the movie, so I got a little hesitant about it, but I decided to pick up the NetGalley arc. That way I wouldn't spend money if I didn't end up liking it. And unfortunately, I have to report that I did not really like this one at all. I'm going to rate it 2 stars. So in this story, we are following the main character, Maeve, and she works as a Disney princess at Disney. They never say Disney and they never say what princess, but it's for sure Elsa and it's definitely Disney. Maeve loves being this princess, which is kind of funny when you read the book. She doesn't seem like the type that would love doing this job, but she actually does, and she actually loves LA too. The story does include a lot of like facts about LA and a lot of history on LA as well, which I think a lot of people will enjoy. But Maeve kind of has a secret side to her, and when her best friend's brother, Gideon, ends up coming to town, him and her kind of have a connection, and things take a interesting turn after they start spending some time with each other. So I guess my overall thoughts on this one was just that I was really bored. I didn't care about Maeve. I found her to be really bland. Even as a villain, I just didn't see her as anything stand out or noteworthy. She just, I don't know, she just felt very flat. I didn't really care about her. I couldn't really connect to her. I just didn't really care about her. The facts about LA and like the history about LA, I'm sure a lot of people would enjoy. I just also didn't really care. It's not that I'm not interested in learning about places. I think it's just that when I'm reading a story like this, it feels very jarring to have so much history thrown at you at once instead of just the plot going on. The second half of this book does take a interesting turn, I guess, or at least a more interesting turn, but unfortunately the like gore and like the murder part of this story happens at like 80% into the book, which is just a little too late for me, and I just didn't care. I didn't care about Gideon, I didn't care about Maeve, I didn't care about the story. I don't know, it was just very flat to me. One cool thing about Maeve is that she does love Halloween, so there's a lot of Halloween talk in the book, which I thought was fun, but overall, I think this is gonna have its audience. I think a bunch of people will love this one, but I personally just didn't get along with it. The next ebook is also a NetGalley arc, and it's The Woods Are Waiting by Catherine Green. I was very interested in this one because it's a thriller, but the plot definitely indicates that there's kind of like a supernatural undertone to it, which captured my attention because I love anything supernatural, like horror or anything like that. So I was wondering if this thriller was gonna tackle the supernatural, because it's very rare you see thrillers kind of, you know, really lean into that. So I was hesitant but very interested, so I decided to request this one on NetGalley, and I'm actually pretty pleased with this one. I don't think everyone is going to love it. I think that if you go in with the right expectations, you might actually enjoy this one. So I'm actually going to give this one 4 stars, and the plot of this book is about the main character, Cheyenne, and she grew up in Blue Cliff, Virginia. She kind of grew up learning about this evil entity that lives out in the woods, and it's kind of like a well-known thing in the town. Like, they don't necessarily all believe it, but they all kind of know about it. And 5 years ago, these kids were found murdered, and this man named Jasper was the one convicted of the crimes. So it was actually a man and not a supernatural evil entity that was killing these children. However, in the present day, Cheyenne has come back to her hometown to help take care of her mother, but also Jasper has been released from prison, but another child actually goes missing, and so the town kind of just starts freaking out. So Cheyenne and her best friend Natalie are the two main perspectives you get of the story, and it focuses a lot on Cheyenne and the past and her friendship with her friend Natalie and what happened with them, what's happening in their lives now, but it's a lot of slow build up until the second half of the story where things start getting a little more interesting. Personally, for me, this book reminds me a lot of a Lisa Jewell book where it's kind of more focused on the characters. So the plot is kind of almost not as important in the beginning as the characters are. And then the second half is more about the actual story and what's going on in the town. I'm giving it 4 stars because while the beginning is very slow and while I did find some of the parts a little bit predictable, I did enjoy the story. I liked the characters. I liked the direction that it went in. And I really liked the ending because the ending kind of leaves you with a little hint of something, a little note of something, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's because it merged things that I really enjoyed together, and that ending kind of hinted at something that I thought was really fun. So I don't think everyone will love this one. I think it is a bit of a slow burn, and depending on how you feel about some predictability in your thrillers, I don't think everyone will love this, but I did find it to be entertaining and it was a fun read for me. So these next books are the ones that I picked while being blindfolded for my June TBR, so let's talk about these ones. First up is Mark of the Wicked by Georgia Bowers. This is a YA fantasy mystery thriller, I guess. It's about the main character Matilda, and she is a witch, and basically, if you decide to use your magic to harm another person, and it can be physical, mental, emotional harm, if you do that, you get these physical scars, and basically these scars are to show you and to be a reminder that you used your magic inappropriately. And one day Matilda at school ends up using a spell, and it kind of goes not the way she intends it to. And she ends up catching the eye of the new boy at school, and he figures out that she's a witch. And then things start, getting out of control. Animals start dying and they're getting all marked up. They have these things carved into them, and everyone starts blaming Matilda, but obviously she knows she's not the one doing them, so she goes on kind of a hunt to figure out who is framing her. This was okay. I gave it 3 stars. It's just very average. It's very predictable. It doesn't really do anything exciting or different. It just felt very average to me, and I pretty much predicted all the twists and turns, so that was a little bit disappointing. I will say though, it had great atmosphere and it takes place during Halloween time, and I really liked the Halloween and the spooky atmosphere. That was great. I just wish that the story had been as fun as the setting was. The next book is Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert, and I was really excited to finally read this one. I've been meaning to read a romance by Talia Hibbert, so I was very excited, and this one includes fake dating, which is one of my favorite romance tropes. This story is about the main character, Danny, and she does not want a relationship. She just kind of wants a friends with benefits. She just wants to have fun without any strings attached. Enter Zaf. He is a security guard, and him and Danny have some chemistry, and he ends up rescuing her from a fire drill. It's a long story. Some things happen, and he ends up rescuing her, and some people record it, and it goes crazy on the internet because Zaf used to be a professional rugby player. So everyone kind of just is like, whoa, they're dating, it's crazy. They end up deciding to fake date because the publicity will actually help Zaf's charity for children. And Dani kind of thinks this is the way she's gonna get him to sleep with her without actually having to be in a relationship. This one was actually really fun. I enjoyed it a lot. I think I'm gonna give it 4.5 stars. The funny thing about this is I actually couldn't relate to Dani as much as I could Zaf. I really liked him and I felt like he was a really interesting love interest. I had a stronger connection to him than I did Dani. I think that's the only thing I didn't love is that I just couldn't really connect to Dani. We don't have a lot in common, so it was a little hard for me, but I really loved Zaf and I really loved them together and I thought their banter was really, really cute and I thought they were cute. It had really good steamy, smutty moments that I really enjoyed, so overall I was pretty pleased with this one. Next up we have The Haunting of Maddie Claire by Simone St. James, and I am so pleased to announce that I have actually had a 5-star read. I loved this book. I'm not really surprised because I love The Sundown Motel, but this one was super enjoyable and it was actually really surprising because I haven't heard that much about this one. I don't hear about it at all, so I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but I loved it. So this book actually takes place in 1920s England and we are following the main character Sarah, and she works for temp agencies and she kind of works job to job and she kind of has a lonely life. She doesn't have a lot of people around her. She just kind of works one job, then takes another, works one job, takes another. She ends up getting this job opportunity with this man, and it turns out that he is a ghost hunter and he needs her help because he's looking into this barn that has ghost activity in it. However, the ghost haunting the barn is this 19-year-old maid named Maddie who committed suicide. And the problem is that she doesn't really like men. She has an issue with them and she won't talk to them. So he wants Sarah to be his voice and like eyes and ears to Maddie. He wants her to go in and kind of help him talk to Maddie without having to do it himself and making Maddie upset. So I really enjoyed this book. I was completely shocked. This is a lot of romance as well. I would say the romance in this story is as relevant and as big of a deal as the main like plot with Maddie, which personally I enjoyed because I love romance and horror mixed together. It's two of my favorite genres and I just think blended together it's so much fun. There was also some smut in here too, which I was shocked by. I did not expect to have smut in here. I mean, it's not like a ton of smut. It's not like crazy wild smut, but like it's in there. Like it's like a hint of smut. It's like it's in there and I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting it. I actually feel like the ghost story itself is actually very creepy and spooky and eerie, and I think the imagery was really well done and the descriptions were really well done. I shouldn't be surprised because I really enjoy Simone St. James's writing, but this was just so much fun. It was a little bit predictable, a little tiny bit predictable, but honestly I had so much fun while reading this. I flew through it. I literally was just like devouring it and I can't give it less than 5 stars. I loved it so much. And this is definitely up there with The Sundown Motel. Those are like my 2 favorites and I just really enjoyed this one. And then I ended up reading I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, which this is completely different for me. I don't read memoirs. I don't read nonfiction. It's not something that I enjoy reading. I don't really know why, but the only nonfiction I've ever, attempted to read and like enjoyed was true crime, which I don't really even read anymore, so I was very hesitant, but I've heard so many good things about this one. And I was always a big fan of iCarly. I loved watching iCarly so much, so I just thought that this one might feel a little bit different for me and it might actually turn out to be a nice surprise, and I was correct. I'm also giving this 5 stars. I don't quite know how to rate memoirs or nonfiction just because, I don't know, it feels kind of weird sometimes. I personally can't see myself myself giving this less than 5 stars, so that's what I feel comfortable rating it. So this book is obviously from Jennette McCurdy's life. It talks about her trauma with her mom. It talks about her eating disorder. It's a lot. It's very emotional, but I think it's important to know what goes on with child actors behind closed doors, and I feel like it's something that is becoming more and more of a discussion, which I think is important, and I just think a lot of people will feel very validated and seen by Jennette McCurdy's memoir and just feel, you know, like they're not alone. So I really enjoyed it. I hope that this was a really healing moment for her and that writing this book really helped her. Next up, we have The Violence by Delilah S. Dawson. This one has been on my TBR for such a long time, and I've been hesitant to read it, so I finally got this one off my shelves. This book is about this pandemic called The Violence, and these people end up getting these sudden bursts of rage and attack people. You get 3 perspectives in this book. One is Chelsea, who is married to David, and he is very abusive. She has 2 children, Ella, who is 17, and Brooklyn, who is 5. The second perspective is Ella, who is the 17-year-old. And the third perspective is Patricia, who is Chelsea's mom and Ella and Brooklyn's grandmother. I don't like pandemic stories. I'm not a fan of them. I have never been a fan of them, but especially after our own pandemic, I just really wasn't a fan of them. And so I didn't know if I was going to like this one, but I do have to say that the type of pandemic this is very interesting. It felt very, I don't know, different and unique. I think my biggest pet peeve is that this book is super long, and the beginning of the book is basically more focused on Chelsea and her abusive marriage, and once that kind of gets settled for the time being, the middle, which is the biggest chunk, is very weird. Especially Chelsea's perspective, I just didn't really care where it went. I wasn't very interested in her or her journey or what was happening with her. I just wasn't that invested. I also felt like it took on a really like silly, weird tone compared to the beginning that is like obviously talking about abuse, and the ending goes back to the same tone that it had in the beginning, which I enjoyed. So I really liked the very beginning and the very end, but the middle I had a problem with. The only perspective I actually really cared about was Ella's, the 17-year-old's. I found hers to be the most tense and the most anxiety inducing one. I felt like that was the one perspective that I actually felt like things were happening in. But honestly, overall, this just wasn't really for me. I didn't really care for all the perspectives. I didn't really care for the direction this book took. I don't know, I wasn't that interested in it. There's also a animal death that is very gruesome and like very descriptive and very gory in the beginning, and it kept getting brought up throughout the book, so I couldn't even forget about the fact that it happened in the beginning because everyone kept bringing it up. So I don't know, this just wasn't for me. I'm probably gonna give it 3 stars. Then we have Stein Tingles by R.L. Stein. This is a short story collection. I had really high hopes for this one because I am a big R.L. Stein fan. I love R.L. Stein so much. I've been reading him for years. I've read Goosebumps and Fear Street. They've been some of my favorite series growing up. So I really expected a lot from this one, and I'm kind of disappointed. I just didn't really get the same feelings that I usually get from a Goosebumps or a Fear Street. Like even now when I read a Goosebump or a Fear Street book at my age of 28, I still feel like they're creepy and kind of like spooky. I just felt like these stories were very like meh. They were okay. They were fine. Some of them I liked a little bit more, but I don't know, they just didn't have the same feeling for me this time around. I feel like some of his other short story collections have been way creepier and way like scarier, honestly. I'm gonna give it 3.5 just because I did like some of it and it was fun. It wasn't like a horrible read. It just wasn't what I expected, and I think I've just read a lot better from R.L. Stein. Next up we have The Dead in the Dark by Courtney Gould. This was actually my Patreon book club read for June, and I was really excited about this one. It was an anticipated release of mine when it came out, but I never actually ended up picking it up. So I was really excited that we all voted on this one, and this is the one we decided to read because I just felt like it was going to be a lot of fun, and I felt like I was gonna enjoy it a lot. So this book is about Logan. Her dads are these TV ghost hunters. Their TV show is called Paraspectors, and they are going to Snakebite, Oregon to film their TV show. But while they're there, they end up realizing that more is going on in the town. Like, yes, the town is weird, but the town is also dealing with a missing teen. The town isn't the most welcoming or receptive to Logan and her dads. You also have Ashley, who is actually the missing teen's girlfriend, and her and Logan end up teaming up to kind of try and figure out what's really going on with this town, like what's really happening, and they get a little bit close while they're investigating. So I actually did really enjoy this book. There's a lot that I did enjoy about this book. I would say like my biggest issue was actually the romance in this story, which is so wild for me. I think everyone knows that I enjoy horror and romance. It's just something that I love. And so I usually really like it in my YA as well, but it has a lot to do with the Ashley character. I particularly didn't care for her. I can't go into too much detail why, but I just personally didn't want her and Logan together. But I actually found this book to be a lot of fun. It was really entertaining. I felt like there were really good creepy moments. I feel like the author's descriptions were really well done. I feel like the book also kept me on my toes. It kept me kind of guessing, but also at the same time, I was able to guess some things, but the author would kind of confuse me and make me feel like I was wrong, which I kind of enjoyed because it made me flounder a little bit with my theories. I was like, wait, am I wrong? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's this. Maybe this is it. So I kind of enjoyed that a lot. Overall, I did really enjoy this one. I think I'm going to give it maybe 4.5 stars. I haven't decided yet. I'll definitely be checking out Courtney Gould's new book, Where Echoes Die, because I feel like that one also sounds like a lot of fun. So I like this one, and I'm glad that we ended up reading this one as a group. Next up, I read Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood, and I know that so many people were reviewing this book and saying it's a copy and paste of The Love Hypothesis. The Love Hypothesis is one of my favorite romance books ever. It was an easy 5 stars. It's the book that got me back into reading romance, and honestly, I just absolutely adored it. So I was not as worried as most people were going into this one, because I had a feeling that if I really enjoyed The Love Hypothesis, I was gonna like this one even if it was very, very similar, and I was correct. I'm giving this 4.5 stars because I actually really like this as well. I personally don't think they're copy and pastes of each other, but I think I'm in the minority with that because it doesn't really bother me when writers have similar books to their other ones. It's not something that I like hate, because I feel like a lot of the authors that I love write similar characters and similar books to their other ones. So I don't know. I think I'm like the only one that didn't hate this book, but I absolutely love this. I thought this was so much fun. This is about our main character, Bee, who gets this offer to work on this project for NASA, and it's like her dream project. So she agrees readily. She is so excited, and then she finds out who's going to be working with her on it, and that is Levi. And Levi and her are arch enemies from grad school. They don't like each other. They have a history, and so she's worried, but she also wants to do this project so badly that she's not going to let Levi get in her way. However, when Bee arrives to start working on the project, she finds that things aren't exactly how she would picture them to be, and Levi actually starts being really helpful and trying to have her back, which confuses her. Honestly, I don't have much to say about this one. I loved it a lot. I still think The Love Hypothesis is better in my opinion. I just think that that one can't be topped, honestly, but I really enjoyed this one. I had a lot of fun, and I thought it was so good. I was giggling. I thought it was so funny. Like, I just loved it. I thought it was really great. That's why I'm giving it 4.5 stars. So maybe I'm just really easy to please. That's probably very true, but I really liked this one. This next book is, I don't really know how to talk about this one, I'll be honest, but the next book is Tampa by Alyssa Nutting. Wow, this cover looks really bad. So this book is about our main character, Celeste, who is 26, and she is starting her new job as an 8th grade teacher. However, Celeste has decided to be an 8th grade teacher solely to get close to the boys in her class because she wants to groom one and have a relationship with him. So, God, I don't know how to rate this book because it is so messed up. It is so disturbing. Like, I can't even believe I read it, honestly. Like, I'm shocked that I made it through this book. It was a very tough read, and the reason it's a tough read is that it is very explicit. Like, I mean very explicit. And honestly, it's a very stomach churning because it's a 26-year-old woman and a 14-year-old boy. So it was very hard to read, and like, I definitely understand the point of this book, and I do think that it did have some good points to it. It's definitely trying to show you that a regular 26-year-old woman who's pretty and attractive, has a normal life, can be a predator. I definitely understand that that's where the book was going. I understand that's the point, and I do think that was a good message. I just think the explicit scenes were too much because it just feels really icky. It feels really, really, really icky. Like, really gross. Like, really disgusting. I had to put down the book a lot, and like, I was laughing because it was just so wild that I was reading this that I couldn't do anything but like laugh. Just some of the things that go on in this book is just, it's insane. I don't know how I finished it. I really don't, because it's a really gross book. I picked this up actually to read because I wanted something really disturbing, and honestly, I blame myself because that's what I got, but I didn't really want it like this. So I don't really know what to say about this book. I do think there was some good points to it. I just think the explicitness of it kind of takes away the merit of some of those points because you're reading these scenes and it feels like it's just an average scene, but it's like not appropriate at all. So it's a wild book. I can't recommend it, honestly, but you know, I obviously read it, and that's all I can say. I don't know what to rate it. I don't know how to rate this book. I don't know how to rate it. Next up, we have The Long Way Back by Nicole Bart. This was an ARC I received from Atria, and this was a very interesting thriller. This is about this mother and daughter, Charlie and Eva, and when Eva is 13, she really wants to make an Instagram account. And Charlie's not really sure if she should let Eva because the dangers of being a young girl on the internet are pretty scary. So Charlie decides to make like a joint Instagram account for her and Eva to do together. That way she can kind of monitor Eva and make sure nothing's going wrong. They end up posting this picture of Eva with like a waterfall. It's very beautiful, and it kind of blows up, and they become kind of these internet influencers. They end up using their platform to do like travel blogging, where they go to places and they take pictures and they show different places that they love and places to eat and, you know, scenic areas to see. And in the present day, Eva is now 17, and Charlie wakes up on this boat and Eva is missing. She is nowhere to be found. So she obviously calls the police and thus begins a search for Eva. So I really did enjoy this book, particularly the first half, because I really liked the discussion of like putting your child on the internet. I feel like that's such a big topic nowadays with like family YouTubers and family TikTok accounts and stuff like that, because, you know, children can't consent to being on the internet, and it's a big question if parents should be allowed to, you know, record their children and just put them out onto the internet for anyone to see. So I really liked those topics being discussed in the first half. I really enjoyed the, you know, mystery of where Eva was, what happened, what led up to Eva disappearing. The second half takes a very interesting turn, a very wild turn, a turn that I don't think most people will anticipate. It kind of comes out of left field. And while I didn't hate the second half of the book, it does feel a little bit disjointed at times, because it almost felt like we switched topics and then the messaging of the second half was way different and about totally different things. which I didn't hate. Again, I thought it was okay, but it was just a little bit jarring, a little bit weird. It just didn't necessarily mesh fully together. You get to look at Eva and Charlie's Instagram posts, and that's a lot of fun. You get the present day chapters from Eva and Charlie's perspective, and you get to read Eva's college essays. I liked having the Instagram posts and the college essays involved. I thought it was a really fun way to tell the story a little bit and give you a different perspective. So I did enjoy this book. The second half is very weird. I don't think everyone's going to like it. I don't think a lot of people will even anticipate what it's going to be. So for those reasons, I'm stuck between a 3.5 and a 4. I did like the book overall. It was entertaining. It was a fun read. I just think that turn that it takes is very odd. Next up is Have You Seen Her by Catherine Mackenzie. This is also an ARC I received from Atria. This is a thriller about the main character Cassie, who is kind of running from something, and by running I mean she's literally running. Like, she even gets a burner phone and ditches her old phone. Like, she's really trying to run. She ends up going back to her hometown and joining the Yosemite Search and Rescue, which she was a part of 10 years ago, where this case kind of went wrong and it kind of haunts her now. You also get the perspective of 2 other women, and they are told in very interesting ways. There's Petal, who is living with her much older partner, and Petal's perspective is told solely through journal entries. And then there is Jada, who is going across country with her boyfriend, and her story is told solely through Instagram posts. Again, kind of like The Long Way Back. Instagram, very weird. I actually read those back to back, and it was very weird to have those two have a similar thing in common. So honestly, this was just an okay thriller for me. I found it very obvious. I found it very predictable. I don't think it's very different or new or exciting. I think if you read a lot of thrillers, you'll be able to predict this one very easy. And it was fine. It held my attention in the beginning. I think the second half I just got a little bit bored because I already knew where it was going. But it was okay. I would give it probably 3 stars. The next book I read was The Last Word by Taylor Adams. I feel like everyone's talking about this book. I feel like everyone has read it recently because it has been super hyped, and I feel like everyone was super excited to read this one because everyone really loves No Exit, myself included. So our main character Emma is house sitting, and she's kind of living very isolated. She has a neighbor close by, but it's really just her and her dog, and she's on the Washington coast. She ends up reading this really bad horror novel, so she ends up giving it a 1-star review, and the author kind of starts an argument with her, and she kind of has this argument going for a little bit, but then weird things start happening at the house that she's house sitting for, and she starts wondering if it could be the author trying to get revenge. So I personally really liked this one. I am a big fan of No Exit. I give it 5 stars. It's one of my favorite thrillers of all time, so I was very excited for this one, and the plot really intrigued me. Obviously, I read a lot of horror novels, and you know, sometimes I give negative reviews, which I thought this book was really funny because I kind of related a lot to it, and I kind of got scared. I was like, well, next time I give a 1-star review, I'm gonna think about this book and I'm gonna be scared. But this book did just make me laugh, and I feel like now every time I give a 1-star review to a book that I didn't like, I will have this book in the back of my head. I found it very exciting. I found it very tense. I was really surprised because I had high expectations, but I also had low expectations, so I didn't quite know what I was going to get with this one, but I found it to be a lot of fun. It's a little bit wild, it's a little bit crazy. It really held my attention, it really grabbed me. I did find it a little bit predictable, which is why I'm giving it 4.5 instead of 5 stars, because as much as I loved it, I did guess the twist, which I was a little bit, well, part of the twist. I guessed part of the twist. I was a little sad about that, but it didn't annoy me as much as I thought it was going to, so I'm still gonna give it 4.5 because I thought it was really great, and I just like was shocked the whole time I was reading it. I was just sucked in. I couldn't get out of this book, so I definitely really enjoyed this one, and I thought it was a lot of fun. The next book is The Soulmate by Sally Hepworth. This was the book troop pick for June. When I'm filming this this video right now, it's July 1st, so the live show is actually tomorrow, July 2nd, but when you see this video, the live will already have happened, so I will link the live discussion with me, Gabby, and Sav in the description, so you can go check that out if you want to see our full thoughts and our discussion. So this book is about Pippa and Gabe, and they have this really lovely cottage. However, the cottage sits on a cliff, and this cliff is actually a known suicide spot, and they didn't know that when they moved in. So these people, you know, show up and they're going to try to end their lives, and Gabe ends up trying to go save all the people that are going to commit suicide. Until one day a woman goes to the cliffs, and when he goes out there to try to stop her, he isn't able to save her. However, it's a little bit suspicious, it's a little bit weird, the circumstances are strange, and Pippa ends up finding out that Gabe knew the woman who supposedly jumped off the cliff. It leads to a whole bunch of questions, and Pippa starts questioning her marriage. Unfortunately, I did not like this. I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. I did not find this to be a thriller. I found it to be more of like a family drama. And personally, all the twists in this book weren't high stakes enough to be twists. I felt like they were just kind of like, okay, that's, I mean, alright, that's interesting, I guess, but they just didn't really have any relevance to like the plot for me. It didn't feel like they were adding anything. It didn't make anything more tense when you found out the twist. It was just kind of like, okay, that's information that you're giving me. Okay. I don't know. I just wasn't that interested. I have a love-hate relationship with domestic thrillers, which, like I said, this isn't a thriller in my opinion. It's like a family drama, but this is supposed to be a domestic thriller. So domestic thrillers are very hit or miss for me. I feel like they're all the same. I just get really tired of reading domestic thrillers, and nothing ever changes in them. They're all very similar to each other, and I feel like the tropes used in them are all just so repetitive that they're so easy to predict. And so for this one, it's not that I necessarily predicted anything, it's just that I didn't really care. It didn't feel tense, it didn't feel interesting, I wasn't like surprised or shocked or on the edge of my seat. Overall, I wasn't a fan of this one, so I am going to give it 2.5 stars. Next up is The Broken Girls by Simone St. James. I read 2 Simone St. James books this month, and this one is a big favorite. I know so many people love The Broken Girls. I've had so many people telling me that I need to read this one. I've been putting it off because I've been kind of nervous, because you know how I felt about The Sundown Motel. It's one of my favorite books. And then I read this one and The Haunting of Maddie Claire this month. I did enjoy this one. I don't think it's as good as The Sundown Motel or The Haunting of Maddie Claire now. I think this one's more of like a 4-star read for me personally. But this is a dual timeline story. The first timeline is in 1950 and the second is 2014. In 1950, we are following 4 girls at Idlewild School. It's a boarding school for girls, basically like troubled girls or girls that no one really wants to deal with. Their families don't want to deal with them. Basically just these girls that no one cares about get sent there, and it's really sad actually, but the school is also supposed to be haunted. In 2014, we are following Fiona. She is a journalist, and 20 years ago her sister's body was found at Idlewild School, like on the property, and she was found murdered. Now someone is trying to restore Idlewild, and Fiona is very interested in this. She doesn't quite know why someone would want to restore Idlewild and reopen it, but she's also still not fully over her sister's death, so she kind of goes to investigate what's going on with Idlewild. So I did enjoy this book. I found it was very interesting, and I was interested in both timelines. I think for me personally, what I didn't love is I felt like the ghost story aspect of this one was just not really that fleshed out. It wasn't as big of a part as like the other mysteries in the story. It just felt very average in terms of a ghost story. It wasn't super exciting or intriguing for me. I did like the historical aspect of this book. It deals with World War II, which is one part of history that I'm probably the most fascinated with, so I was actually pretty intrigued by that. I did find this one predictable as well. I did guess a few of the twists, which I was sad about. I just felt like this one didn't get me as much. Like, I still feel like The Sundown Motel and The Haunting of Maddie Claire are just better ghost stories and just better in general. But that being said, I don't think this is a bad book. Like, I did really enjoy it. Like I said, I want to give it 4 stars. I had a lot of fun with it. I don't think it's like horrible. It's just not my favorite of the Simone St. James books that I've read. For me, this falls pretty much in line with the Book of Cold Cases, which again, I really enjoyed. I enjoyed this one too. I just don't think it's a new, like, favorite of mine compared to The Sundown Motel and Maddie Claire. Next we have The Night She Disappeared by Lisa Jewell, and again, another author that I absolutely love. I feel like Lisa Jewell is one of those thriller authors that I enjoy everything I've read from her so far, so I was really excited about this one because a lot of people have told me that it's their favorite and that I'll really enjoy it, so I decided to finally pick this one up. So this story is about Tallulah and Zach. They are a couple and they've just had a son. They decide to go out and kind of have a night to themselves like new parents do, so they leave their son with Tallulah's mom. However, they never come back after that night. They just disappear. A year later, a writer moves into this cottage that is very close to the area that Zach and Tallulah disappeared from. She ends up going for a walk, and while she's walking, she finds this note that says, "Dig here," and she wonders if it has anything to do with the disappearance of Tallulah and Zach. So this is a very interesting book by Lisa Jewell because in the beginning, I really thought I knew where this was going, and at first I wasn't the biggest fan. I was kind of like, this is everyone's favorite. I just wasn't a big fan. It felt very predictable. It felt very obvious. I felt like, you know, why should I be surprised? Like, this is obviously what happened. And then it took a turn, and it shocked me, and I did not expect it at all, and I ended up really loving the way this story turned out. Like, I actually can't believe the direction this one went in. I think this one shocked me just as much as The Family Upstairs, which are the 2 Lisa Jewells that I have found to be the most surprising with the twists. So I'm going to give this one 4.5 stars because it really shocked me. I'm still holding out for a 5-star read from Lisa Jewell because I just haven't been able to give any of her stories 5 stars. But this one is a new favorite for sure, and I really did enjoy the way this one went. And lastly is Long Bright River by Liz Moore. I was not sure I was going to like this one at all because it is a perspective from a police officer. I just really don't enjoy like detective books or police books or books with police, cop, detective perspectives. I don't know. They just really frustrate me. I'm just never really that interested in them. So I wasn't sure I was going to like this one. But this book is about the main character, Mickey. She is a police officer and she has a sister named Casey, and Casey is addicted to drugs. And they do not have a good relationship. They are estranged. They do not speak. However, Mickey kind of uses her job as a way of keeping track of Casey and making sure that she is okay. But Casey ends up going missing and Mickey can't find her. She can't find anyone that's heard from her. She can't find anyone that's seen her. So she starts getting a little worried, especially because these murders start popping up in town and Mickey starts getting really worried about her sister. Now, this personally to me is more of a mystery. It feels like a literary mystery. I compared it to Before You Knew My Name by Jacqueline Bublitz. It has that literary, lyrical kind of writing to it. This book also alternates between the then and the now. And the then is pretty much like how Mickey became a police officer, Mickey's relationship with Casey, them growing up, their life, how Casey got addicted to drugs, and the now is obviously Mickey looking for Casey and the murders that are happening. So this is definitely a slow book. I mean, it's kind of thick, but I feel like the chapters are very short and it felt like I read it much quicker than I did. I also listened to this one on audio for my audiobook reading vlog, which I will have linked down below. I listened to this one along with the violence and I'm glad my mom died for that video. So I think that was also a interesting way to hear this one. I felt like the twists were actually very surprising. I wasn't expecting this book to have like twists like that, but I actually didn't expect them. They caught me completely off guard and I was actually super surprised. And overall, I really did enjoy this book. I think if it had been a little bit shorter, not as slow, I think I would have liked it a little bit more. But overall, I did enjoy like the topics of addiction and sibling bonds and, you know, the mystery of the murders and Casey's disappearance was also very interesting to me. So for those reasons, I'm probably going to give this one a 4, maybe a 4.5. I'm not sure. All right, my friends, and that is going to do it for my June wrap up. Those are all the books I read in the month of June. I think I had a pretty decent reading month. I'm actually super shocked I finally got a 5-star read. I feel like it's been taking forever for me to finally get one, so I'm so happy that I actually read some books that I really, really enjoyed. I didn't have too many duds either. I mean, a few, but nothing super crazy, and I'm pretty happy about that. Go ahead and let me know what your favorite read of June was, or your least favorite. You can let me know both. If you've read any of these books and you agree with me or disagree, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. If any of these are on your TBR, you can go ahead and let me know that as well. I'd love to know. If you enjoyed this wrap up and you like seeing my wrap ups, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. That way I know that you enjoy them so I can keep doing them for you in the future. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I also have a Patreon. You can click the link in the description to check it out. We can become friends, talk about books, horrifying books, thrilling books, romance books, manga, all that good fun stuff. And with that being said, I hope you're having a great day, night, morning, afternoon, wherever you are, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!